Welcome to episode 9 of the Brand Bites podcast. I'm your host, Laura Richards, account director here at Ride Shotgun, and I'm thrilled to be bringing you another episode. Today, we are mixing things up with some exceptional guests who are not only powerhouses in their own right, but also make an unbeatable duo when it comes to digital strategy and content marketing. We are joined by Sophie Bass, Global Marketing Manager at The-Bar and Malts.com, and Megan Sarotman, Global Head of Strategy and Marketing at maltsthebar.com, which means we've got a perfect mix, which there's no pun intended, by the way, of digital strategy and content marketing perspectives in today's episode. First up, for those of you who don't know, Diageo is a global player in the drinks world, known for iconic brands like Johnnie Walker, Tanqueray, Guinness, and a firm favourite of mine, Ciroc. The list goes on. They lead charge in innovation and operate across over 180 countries worldwide. In this episode, we'll chat to Sophie and Megan about their experience of blending the world of spirits and digital innovation. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you both?
Really good, thanks.
This is a treat today. It does not feel like work.
It feels like a field trip.
Yeah, a day out. I've let you out. Thank you so much for coming.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Anytime. To kick things off, do you want to give an introduction about yourselves and what you do at Diageo, what your role entails?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. I'll go first. So my name's Megan Sarotman, and I'm the Global Head of Strategy and Marketing for Malts.com and The-Bar. Many people may not know, but those are our two biggest digital propositions at Diageo.
And I'm Sophie Bass. I'm Global Marketing Manager for The-Bar and Malts.com, and I lead on the content strategy and content creation for both platforms.
Oh, thank you. It's amazing to have you both here. Thank you. Megan, your first time in Manchester.
I know, right?
How is it? How have you found it?
Well, I've only walked between here and the train station, so I think I probably need a little bit more exposure.
That's fine. Let's go straight in. Diageo is a global force in the drinks industry. How does digital marketing fit into the wider strategy for your brands and the brands that you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think it's a fully integrated part of what we do. I think a lot of people talk about digital marketing and marketing like they're two separate things, but today digital marketing is just marketing.
Everything, yeah.
If you think about what you do on a daily basis as a consumer, like I'm on Google, I'm on Amazon, I'm on social media, I'm trying to research, explore, find different products to engage with. And that's really what our consumers are doing as well. So anything that we do is a fully integrated 360 campaign where we're creating assets that meet consumers at every single touch point, regardless if it's online or in the physical world.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go straight into the heart of today's conversation. We're here to explore how content and digital marketing can really bridge the gap between consumer expectations and brand experiences. Sophie, in your experience working on these platforms, have you seen a shift in the expectations versus the reality of content production over the years?
Oh, absolutely. There's 100% been a shift. Sorry, done.
Yes. Tell me how you really feel. Question answered, move on.
Yeah, there's 100% been a shift. So previously we had fewer channels to play with. As we've seen the number of platforms and formats increase, the consumer expectation and demand for content has just exploded.
Yeah.
So consumers are expecting more fresh content, varied, at a much higher frequency rate as well, which has made the responsibility of content marketers to focus a lot more on channel prioritization. When we have that, we can then optimize content to suit those channels because as we all know, what works on one channel doesn't necessarily work on another. So that's evolved the pressure because we now have to think about increasing our content quantity production, not letting quality drop, obviously, but also navigating a much more complex digital landscape. And I think this is where we really see tools playing a part to support us and to kind of help us shoulder some of that work. So we can use tools like in-depth keyword analysis tools, which instantly show us how consumers are behaving through search, or tools which help us very quickly create visual assets through digital twins or AI, which help us take a little bit of that workload off of us so that we can focus on doing all of the rest of the work but still maintaining the quality.
Yeah, because it must be like a constant moving jigsaw, briefing something, then realising, oh, actually that content's probably needed for that platform and we don't have those assets.
Absolutely. And consumers are constantly evolving as well. Their needs and what they're interested in are constantly changing. So we're always trying to meet consumers where they are with what they want.
Yeah, I get that. And The-Bar and Malts.com play such a huge part within Diageo's ecosystem. Can you tell us a bit more about these platforms and how the projects come about and how do they complement your brand and trade experiences?
Yeah, totally. So we did not invent the bar and malts.com. They've actually been around for a number of years in different iterations. So malts.com was historically much more of a shop front for us. It was run by a third party. So that's mainly the reason why. And the bar was actually a massive recipe repository. And over the kind of years and looking at Diageo's corporate strategy, we can see that our categories and the power of our portfolio is playing such a key role for us to win with consumers. And we saw a big potential with both of these digital brands because really we have the breadth and depth of knowledge in both single malts and just our breadth of portfolio across rum, tequila, vodka, etc. We didn't really have a marketing destination for that. So for malts.com, like I said, it's the digital home of our malts brands and brand homes. We have over 15 different single malts brands. We have over I think 16 visitable distilleries, which means that like the scope of assets that we have at our disposal around like whiskey knowledge, craftsmanship, and history is so fundamental. But there was no way to really connect to our luxury ambition or to make these omnichannel experiences work for us between the website and brand homes. So that's really what we've done with malts.com to evolve it and try to reach its potential. And now we're doing the same thing with the bar. So Diageo owns like 200 brands, which means that we have really a different brand depending on like what you're celebrating or what your different taste is. And we had no platform that was bringing all those to life. And what we found is that each brand kind of lends itself to a different celebration occasion, depending on kind of what life stage you're at or what different time of year it is. And consumers aren't linear. They're not staying in one lane of celebration. So the purpose of the bar is to really give consumers that choice depending on what they're celebrating and what moment they want to bring to life.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, when you look at it like that? So talking about those brand journeys for those platforms, how do you ensure that digital channels enhance rather than replace the physical brand experiences? I've been fortunate enough to go to Scotland to visit the distillery, and it is a real experience. So how do the platforms replace that?
Yeah, it's really topical actually at Diageo, because I think historically, and this isn't just Diageo, but throughout the industry, there's been a concern that the digital channels do take away from offline sales. But all of our research really says that digital channels play a significant influencing role on offline purchases. People do still purchase spirits online, don't get me wrong, but it's not it hasn't been as proliferate as other industries like makeup or skincare. And because we know that about how consumers interact with our platforms, we've basically designed them with that in mind. So if you look at the bar or malts, it's all about exploration, inspiration, discovery, education. And listen, we'll never create a dead end for a consumer. If they want to purchase with us, they can. If we want to link them off to a third-party retailer, we can do that. But we just want to be really conscious of not creating something that the consumer is really not going to interact with.
Or buy into.
Exactly. We want to meet them with where they are and with what they want, like we've said before. And I think with on-trade too, we have a lot more work to do there, but we're doing quite a bit with the bar right now, where we're starting to elevate a lot of our on-trade partners, like restaurants and bars that sell our brands, so that consumers can discover them. And then we do a nice handoff to discover our brands in the physical world as well.
And going back to what Sophie was saying earlier about the increased platforms and channels and content that's required, how do you prioritise channels and guide consumers to the right destination whilst balancing the storytelling, the education, the commerce for that seamless journey?
God, Laura, it's like you work at Diageo. These are all questions that we have to answer. That's honestly a great question. So something we get asked quite frequently by markets is like, what is the right destination strategy for us? And so I think about a year ago, we set out to refine what our channel strategy looks like for online channels. And we're really lucky with digital channels that there's so much data at our fingertips on how consumers are interacting on those platforms, how they find us there, whether they buy or not. And so we took the time to actually define, what does each digital channel mean to the consumer? What is its role within their consumer journey? And then off the back of that, what is the benefit for Diageo? Like, what's the commercial outcome? So once we were able to define those things, it becomes a lot easier for us to prioritize where should we send specific traffic depending on what the campaign objective is. So I can give you a really live example right now, where for paid search, if somebody is typing into Google, our brand name with a price and I need quick delivery, we're probably not going to surface the bar. That consumer's journey, they're clearly trying to price compare our brands, get something quickly. So Amazon is the clear choice for that.
Yep.
And we're not in the business of cannibalizing channels like that. So being able to clearly understand, okay, this is Amazon's role, not ours, creates that clear delineation. Whereas if we see somebody searching for, I don't know, like best cocktail for an engagement party, that lends itself much more to the bar. We're getting them inspired. We can then recruit them into our brands. And it's this really nice, I guess, like symbiotic ecosystem where all of our channels complement each other.
And it's back the bar having a purpose, not just being an e-commerce channel.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And Sophie, can you share an example of how consumer feedback or digital behaviour has influenced your content and marketing approach at Diageo?
Yeah, of course. I mean, both of them are completely fundamental to the content strategies of both platforms. But to kind of give you like a nice, neatly gift-wrapped example, I can talk a little bit about the editorial work that we do for Malts.com. So, and here I mean, when you go onto Malts.com, we'll have a journal section, which is all of our editorial articles. And we kind of cover a load of things from search focus to really rich, deep insights articles. When we start our planning process for this, we really dive into in-depth keyword research because we want to know exactly what consumers are searching for. When consumers use search engines to type something in, they have a need or an interest or a problem, and we want our content to surface as the solution to that. So by understanding that search behavior, we can then start aligning keywords to our content decisions. We're very fortunate to have a really talented in-house copywriter. Shout out Jack.
We love Jack, and I've never met him.
we do love Jack. Who brings a lot of expertise in this space. So he's a real fantastic mix of copywriting and search background. So he will take that analysis, that keyword analysis, align it to the content decisions, create the copy, but also ensure that we're hitting Google's secret spice mix of EEAT, which is what Google used to rank how valuable the content is aligned to consumer search behavior. So when we can kind of bring all of that together, we're making sure that consumers type something in and Malt's editorial content gets served to them, which is why when you go onto the site, you'll see a lot of content around beginners' guides to whiskey, how to enjoy whiskey at home, whiskey recommendations, and Scotland tourism around distilleries, because that's what consumers are interested in.
Yeah, amazing. The whole experience, not just buying a bottle of whiskey.
Exactly,
We've talked a lot about the pressures of more content, more channels, but with tighter budgets. How do you balance quality with quantity in such a demanding environment?
It's a big pressure, isn't it? I think we have a couple of ways that we manage this. And in my head, how I kind of group them thematically is through planning and through collaboration. So when I think about planning, we will strategically plan our content to identify gaps and opportunities. So from a gaps perspective, I'm looking to understand what content doesn't exist that needs to be created. And with opportunities, it's more about what content already exists that we can repurpose for our needs. Once we've got that plan in place, it's then going back to our overarching digital strategy just to make sure that we're not drifting off course. It's all aligned. And also, again, like I said in my previous answer, aligning to consumer search behavior, because we want to make sure quality content is what consumers are interested in. So with that plan in place, it's then checking that still aligns to our overall digital strategy. We don't want to be drifting off course, and checking it also aligns again to consumer search behaviors, because quality content is what consumers are interested in.
Which is what we've been talking about.
Exactly, with that in hand, it's then a case of doing some channel prioritization, because again, we all know what works on one channel doesn't work on another, but there are ways to kind of atomize content across channels in different ways. So a really kind of tactical example, an editorial piece that has its home on Malts.com can be repurposed across social and CRM. It's therefore increasing our quantity of content, but it's really not putting a lot of extra work on us. So that's kind of neatly packaged planning. And then thinking about collaboration, this is where we're very lucky within our kind of internal ecosystem to have really great relationships with the relevant teams around us. So thinking specifically about Malts, we obviously own the Malts.com experience, but we work really closely with the Malts Global brand teams as the owners of the brands, and the Scotland brand home teams who own the distillery experiences. So we will have conversations with them to say, what are you working on? This is what we're working on. Can we co-collaborate? Because that takes a lot of a lot of that kind of pressure and strain off of us to work in isolation, when actually, when we all come together, it serves a real benefit for us and for the consumers.
And it gives efficiencies as well.
Yeah, it does, exactly. And that's kind of how we kind of balance it, really. It's that focus on what we're going to do net new. That's when it comes to you guys.
Yes.
And that's really the other collaboration piece. We've identified gaps in content that we need. We'll come to you with a brief focused on insights and say, guys, let's get the ball rolling.
And are we pleased when you come to us? At Ride Shotgun, smart production is something that we talk about a lot. We tailor content production to fit the brief, whether that's video, photography, or something more immersive. Our smart approach to production always aims to help the clients deliver more for less. How does that align with Diageo's approach to creating more content?
Yeah, I think honestly, that's exactly our philosophy, probably why we work so well together. So I think we're always in the pursuit of making sure that our development costs are right-sized against what we're trying to achieve with the consumer and how much media spend we have across those platforms. I will say, I think kind of the number one principle that we have here is we don't want to create content that won't resonate with consumers, as Sophie mentioned, and also that isn't going to be executed across platforms or be amplified with paid media. The last thing we want is content sitting on shelves. And so it's really important to us that like what we're briefing in not only kind of employs the smart production capabilities, but is also going to be 100% usable.
Yeah. And a question to both of you is how the concept of reusing and repurposing assets, how has that shaped your content strategy?
Yeah, another great question. Honestly, we're super lucky just by virtue of the teams that we sit in, because the bar and malts is very much like portfolio, category led. We're quite brand agnostic. So the content that we create is actually just inherently more usable across the organization, frankly. So we've seen other brand teams use our content. And more recently, and super exciting for us, Diageo corporate and employer brand have been reaching out because it is brand agnostic and they're able to use it to market Diageo as a company or recruit new employees to Diageo as well. So I think it is a little bit of the nature of our roles and also just the quality of the content that we're creating.
Yeah, making sure it can be reused. And Sophie, I've spent time with you and Meg and obviously talking to other stakeholders at Diageo. Can you, the buzzword is definitely conscious create. That is kind of what I'm hearing. Can you share a bit about how Diageo is pushing the envelope of conscious create and how that philosophy is working specifically at malts.com?
Yeah, of course I can. So just as a little bit of context, Conscious Create, as you said, is a Diageo-led initiative, which is really aiming to streamline the content creation process to make it more efficient and sustainable, with the long-term goal being that the content that's created is impactful and necessary. So again, to Meg's point, we don't want content sat on the shelf that's not being used. I think we're in a very unique and actually quite privileged position, I think, to support Conscious Create from two different ways. The first piece is the fact that we own category and portfolio content and the creation of it for malts. And by that, I mean unbranded content. And this can be used across the whole spectrum of the Diageo business. You know, if a brand team is looking for a gorgeous photo of an old fashioned, it works for them. If the corporate team are wanting a video of people enjoying whiskey to spotlight Scotch education, or if the employer team are on a recruitment drive for Scotland Brown Homes distilleries, we have editorial pieces around day in the life. So we can really help with those other teams with the content that we're producing. But then on the flip side, we actually can help Conscious Create from a branded content perspective as well. Now, obviously, we don't own that content. That comes from the global brand teams. But with malts being the digital home for Diageo's single malts portfolio, we can host all of this branded content and all of these campaigns that are created by the brands and therefore increase the shelf life and the longevity of these assets and help them sweat a lot harder for the brand teams. So I think it's something that we're really proud of how we're working in two different ways on Conscious Create and really helping to push that envelope, as you called it.
And it goes back to what you were talking about earlier about collaboration as well, working with teams, you know, working with the brands and kind of, you know, just having those communications.
Absolutely. Because when you have that collaboration and you have that transparency and communication across teams, that's when you don't have separate buckets of content being created in silo that potentially duplicate each other. They do the same job in different ways. You can create everything with your combined expertise and deliver it, and it works for the consumer and the platform it's just like
everyone's
chef's
happy.
kiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. We've been lucky enough to work with you guys for well over a year now. We've worked on various campaigns for malts, for the bar, for distilleries. It's been amazing. We spent a lot of time driving, a lot of mileage in the Highlands, looking at the scenery.
Yes.
How do you find the approach, and how Ride Shotgun approach Diageo projects?
Yeah. Honestly, we've done quite a few projects with you so far, and I feel like we would need a whole other podcast to go through all the work.
Let's do it.
So I think we should maybe just focus on our favorite one. I'm pretty sure we have the same favorite one. So the Omnichannel distillery shoot that we did in the fall in Scotland is my favorite. Just to give a little bit of background before Sophie goes into approach. Basically, when we were launching malts.com, we did a piece of research to look at, okay, what is the distillery visitor's journey with us? We didn't really have a lot of knowledge on that. And what we found is that basically a visitor's trip to Scotland is not centered around just going to a distillery. Yeah. It's the entire Scottish experience. It's the landscape, it's the people, it's the towns, it's the distilleries. We heard a lot about puffins too. Yeah. That's a big draw. And the second thing that was really interesting is that the people talked a lot about how much they loved the people that worked in the distilleries. So the tour guides, the operators, the retail staff, like just the passion that they have for what they do, and the liquid and the brands is really iconic. Yeah. And we wanted to find a way to bring these things to life through the platform, through our CRM channels, through social. And to Sophie's point, when we did a bit of an audit to see, okay, like what do we actually have that would meet this need? Yeah. We didn't find anything that like really hit that insight. Yeah. And so then basically we rounded up the teams and put a brief together and enter Ride Shotgun.
And where we rounded up our teams and off we went.
All teams are rounded up.
Definitely.
That's where we came to you with this big meaty brief packed full of insights, I think in about August time last year. Yeah. And full credit, you guys really stepped up to the plate. It was always going to be a challenge. But you took all of those insights and really assimilated them into particularly the creative direction. Yeah. So the team absolutely smashed it, and the creative direction really demonstrates how those insights were embedded. Yeah. So you see a group of friends touring Scotland, enjoying the landscape, exploring, spending meaningful time together, visiting distilleries, meeting the distillery team and interacting with them. But it was all done in a kind of a creative aesthetic that felt premium and modern, but it never felt stuffy. Yeah. Which was really crucial for us.
Which was the brief, essentially.
Exactly, yeah. And I think also it's a full credit to you guys logistically for a shoot of this scale. I mean, we were a crew, I think, of 33, keep me honest.
I think it was 36. Oof. I think when I rocked up late, it was 37.
We're just picking up people along the way.
Yeah, you can come along.
Yeah, you can come for the ride. And, you know, moving a unit that size across the Scottish Highlands is no mean feat whatsoever. There was, that, you know, if there was a hiccup, you guys never let on to it. It all went seamlessly. The distillery teams were really thrilled with how respectful and how thorough you guys were. And it just, it went really, really smoothly. And I think kind of testament to everybody involved that we, like I said, we dropped the brief off to you guys in August. And I think 10 weeks later we wrapped. Yeah. And, you know, 1,000 miles driven across.
I think it was 1,100. Tom's got it around or somewhere.
Tom will have it on his car, I'm sure. And yeah, like Megan said, when she kicked off this answer, I think it's definitely one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And same for us when we received the brief. Yes, logistically, it was like, okay, let's round the troops up. How do we approach this? But it was the perfect brief for us to, and we absolutely loved it. And we loved the shoot, and the content looks amazing.
It really does.
It does. And get onto the content. How have consumers responded to the content?
We've seen really good responses.
Yes. Music to my ears.
We are very happy.
We are very happy. Consumers are very happy. So just to give you a kind of a small example, the content that we've used so far on social has really overperformed versus our benchmarks for social.
That's amazing.
Which we're thrilled with, you know, kind of views are through the roof, engagements, interactions.
Brilliant. Followers too.
Followers
really?
too.
Yeah.
A lot of kind of leading industry figures interacting with the content as well. So blue ticks on some of the comments, which is nice.
I'm going to need all this in writing from you after this podcast, by the way.
Let me grab my notepad.
So I think it's really, the response has really been a testament to the fact that we had these insights, we had this gap in content, we went and created it, and it's resonated, and we're just thrilled.
Amazing. That is like music to our ears. It really is, because there was blood, sweat and tears, and we did it. We got there. Yeah. Digital strategy and content marketing go hand in hand. How do you guys ensure alignment across your teams?
I honestly think this goes back to the digital marketing, just being marketing question as well. Sophie and I work in the exact same team. I work with consumer insight to create kind of the strategy, which then informs the prioritization of what we execute. And it becomes quite seamless for us because ultimately we always go back to the strategy that enables us to be much more like basically effective and efficient at the what and the how of what we're doing. So I think really they need to align at all times, or else we aren't able to meet the brief of what consumers want.
Absolutely. And that's where then with our brief, we're super focused on creating a suite of assets aligned to that strategy and those insights, but also functionally that will serve us for a significant amount of time and also can be repurposed across platforms, either as part of that brief or further down the line, we can come to you guys and say, we want to revive this.
Yeah, most definitely. And if you were speaking to a marketeer who's working on a global scale to maintain consistency while allowing for local flexibility, what advice would you give them?
Sounds familiar, Sophie.
Is this just your day-to-day handing out advice?
It's a really good question, and it's very relevant.
Interesting
to both of our roles, but I think from a content perspective, it's something that is part of my day-to-day. So it's also kind of a part of Conscious Create as well, because actually with streamlining that content creation process, Conscious Create is really focusing on empowering global brand teams to create master content, which can be handed off to local teams to then tweak for their kind of local nuances. So my biggest advice would be, firstly, to get your kind of global house in order, as it were. And to have that backed by the markets that you are working with. So things like having a global content strategy, a tone of voice, a visual identity, understanding your global consumer behavioral insights, understanding your search analysis. And then, like I said, having the buy-in from the markets to all of that makes it really crucial. But for me, I think the turning point is understanding local legal requirements for your markets. And this is really thinking about what are they legally allowed to show and not show in their assets. Because when you have all of that, you're in a very empowered place to write a brief that will create content that can work for the majority of markets, either immediately out of the box or with just a few tweaks at a local level to make it ready to go.
Going back to working with your agency partners, we touched on earlier, working with Ride Shotgun. What makes for that successful partnership?
Yeah, I honestly am super passionate about this topic just because I've worked at agencies for like the first 10 years of my career. Diageo was actually the first brand that I worked for. And so I've been able to see how this works from both sides of the fence. And really, I think agencies are so important because they allow us to bring specialized expertise, fresh perspectives, and ultimately like scalability for the things that just are not our bread and butter. And to be successful in that, I think the first thing you need is transparency. So even if the conversation is maybe a little uncomfortable, it's better that everybody gets what they need out in the open so that we can address a problem as it comes up. I think the second thing is really important that we bring like transparency to that partnership, whether it's like good, bad, or uncomfortable. We need to have shared goals. So making sure that we're all working towards the same North Star. And I think the last thing, which really takes a few projects to build up, is trust.
Yeah, of course.
And I think the distillery shoot is actually a prime example of that. Like, we built up so much trust with you guys that now we just know how projects are going to run. They're going to be run successfully. And therefore, you're much more of a trusted advisor to us as opposed to just a vendor.
Yeah, I agree. And we definitely see ourselves as an extension of your team. And I agree, it's about having those open and honest conversations. on a shoot, the scale of the distillery shoot, where, like you said, it was logistically challenging. We did need to pick up the phone sometimes and say, slight challenge, what do we do? And we were able to. And I think, you know, we've definitely made it work in such a small amount of time as well. So it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I think also because we've put so much effort into understanding each other's communication styles, we can put fires out really quickly and really effectively, which means we keep decision processes moving and lines of communication open.
Definitely. So WhatsApp gift, right?
Sometimes that's all you need.
That's all you need. A question to both of you. If you could give some advice to your younger self, what would it be and why?
So I think mine is super cliche and you've probably heard it before, but I would just say, like, lean into the things that scare you the most. I think things that scare me or make me the most nervous are often things I haven't done before. And therefore I'm just scared of failing, frankly. But I think the flip side of that is that there's also so much for you to learn. And those are the things that build resilience throughout your career, that, like, no matter what the problem is, you will be able to figure it out eventually. And you have the confidence in yourself to do that. And if I look at the things that have, I guess, been the most meaningful to me and educational throughout my career, have been like the big scary things, like moving to a new city to work at a bigger agency, moving across the world to London, being on this podcast, like all of these things just, I think, build up your resilience to take on different challenges.
Sophie?
I think mine's quite similar. I've experienced imposter syndrome for a lot of my career, and I know a lot of people have. It's something that we're all more aware of and have more open conversation about, which is fantastic. But when I was younger, it wasn't much of a known thing. So sometimes that would hold me back from taking opportunities. So my biggest piece of advice would be, don't listen to that imposter syndrome on your shoulder. Take the opportunity, because if you don't, someone else will. You will kick yourself. So take it, enjoy it, shine, own your space, and just have fun.
Oh, that's such nice advice. We did a podcast last week for International Women's Day, and the subject of imposter syndrome came up a lot. And that is brilliant advice, because it's true. Run towards the challenge, because you won't regret it.
Absolutely.
And I think you should always regret the things you do and not the things you don't do.
Yes.
On again with my inspirational quote, guys. We always ask a previous podcast guest to ask a current podcast guest a question. So a question from Tina Fajan, who is a global marketing procurement consultant. She wants to know, as marketing and strategy directors, you're constantly having to balance strategic and creative excellence with commercial effectiveness for your brand. How do you ensure that your content and digital strategies are not only aligned to meet consumers where they are with what they want and when they want it, but also deliver measurable value and ROI? And also, how can your procurement team better support this balance between agility, quality, and cost efficiency? It's a big question.
What a question.
I mean, Tina, that's 3 questions.
It is,
Somebody needs to talk to Tina about that.
I think I'll leave that one with you.
Good. I think this is just another theme throughout the podcast. Like, I think this is you can have your cake and eat it too situation. If you are keeping consumers at the heart of what you're doing, you are much more likely to reap the commercial benefit and the ROI. I think everything that we do is just making sure that we have a clear objective in our brief, we have a clear consumer insight. And I also think making sure we have a learning agenda as a part of that is super important, because we have seen through either us just applying these learnings manually or using one of the many tools Diageo has developed in order for us to do this automatically. We just continue to boost ROI throughout that process without having to compromise on creative quality or cost. If I tackle, I think, her second or third question on procurement, we are super fortunate to have like an amazing procurement partner. Another shout out to Gemma. And what's really worked in our partnership with her is to bring her in like quite early and often, because she's able to give us benchmarks on how the industry is kind of approaching different challenges, costing. Even Diageo is massive, the 200 brands. Like there's so much to learn even internally. And I think to that end, it really allows us to be much more commercially effective without compromising quality.
How early in the process do you bring on board procurement? Is it straight away?
Day
like,
one.
We're thinking of doing this.
Yes.
What do you think? Oh, right. Okay.
And I think the great thing about her is like, she's so like flexible around like how she works with us. So it's almost like we're coming to her with a challenge every time, and she's just there to figure out the process with us. And I think having like, again, it's like a true partner internally is super helpful.
We all need a Gemma.
We do.
We do.
Sounds great. So now on to some fun questions. I've been dying to ask these because we've spent a lot of time on set. We've talked a lot about music when the radio's been on, and I've wanted some rubbish. So if the bar and malts.com brand journey had a soundtrack, what would it be and why? So go for it.
This is going to out me as a Swiftie.
I was going to add it to the intro, but I thought I better not. She'll come up in this podcast somewhere.
Megan Srockman, head of digital strategy
Swiftie.
and Swiftie.
I'm going to add that to my email signature.
You should, yeah.
So purely because I think malts.com has been on a little bit of a comeback journey recently, I would say anything from Reputation by Taylor Swift.
I thought you'd go folklore.
No.
Okay. I mean, it's Taylor Swift. I knew you'd go Taylor Swift.
That's decisive.
Yeah.
Respect.
I have to be assertive here with Taylor Swift.
Yeah,
do.
that
You
decision is
really
made.
do.
There's no movement.
I feel like I've strayed from the path because I haven't picked a Taylor Swift for the bar.
We'll talk about this after.
Yeah, we will. Over dinner.
So I went for Electric Feel by MGMT because to me that's quite funky. I feel like it brings a party, which is a bit of what the bar is aiming at doing. But I must admit, when I did look up when it was released, it was 18 years ago.
Oh my God.
Which was horrifying.
Terrifying.
But however, it does not change my choice. That is the theme tune for the bar.
Definitely shows how much cooler you are than me. Megan, I'm not saying you're not cool.
Laura. Don't call me out on a podcast.
We are the same person. We spoke about this. And finally, if you had to eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
Tacos.
Yeah, fair.
Period.
Did you just
End
lean
sentence.
into the microphone?
Tacos.
Do we have any here?
Well, I hope Tom's booked a Mexican restaurant for tonight.
Oh,
knowing
no,
that.
Tom's let you down again.
Tom.
I think, and hopefully this will get approval of JJ, the creative director who's in the room, tiramisu. Just a big tray and a big spoon. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Happy.
Again, a big talking point on set.
Yes.
Yeah.
Recurring
big.
themes.
Yes. I think mentions of taste testing several tiramisus to find a league table winner was...
That's for when we're in Scotland
was
next.
voiced.
We'll do that.
Round two.
Yeah, definitely. We've booked an Italian tonight, not Mexican. So you'll have to order a tiramisu. Give that one a taste.
At least one of us will be happy.
Sorry, Meg. We'll ask for Taylor Swift to be played. Thank you both so much. It's been amazing. It's always a joy. It's been brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thanks so much for having us.
It's a pleasure.